Yeah, Shoney's was great. They didn't serve alcohol, so you could be 16 and work as a server there. And so I just had the best time serving people. I don't know what it was, but I got to meet everybody, say hi to everybody, and, kind of like bring smiles to their faces.
From Fiore Communications, it's How I Got Here, a show of inspiring stories from Tallahassee area leaders, business owners, and neighbors, all the challenges, opportunities, inspirations, the twists and turns of life that led them to where they are today. Everyone has a story worth telling, and I am really grateful that we get to bring a few of them to you. I truly have been changed by my conversations with these amazing people, and I'm confident you will be too. I'm Dave Fiore. And in this episode, I speak with Jeri Desloge, the owner of Jeri's Midtown Café, Jeri's Love on a Plate, and Simply Entertaining by Jeri. And while that may seem like a lot for the popular restaurateur to keep up with, Jeri has spent a lifetime working hard, going the extra mile, and doing whatever it takes to reach her goals. The native of Clewiston, Florida, was raised in the shadow of the area's sugarcane mill, where she played sports, was class president, and rocked the saxophone. She actually first fell in love with Tallahassee attending FSU band camps and was determined to return one day. Jeri's first food job was at Shoney's as a server before transferring to the Tallahassee Outback, enrolling at Kaiser, and helping to open multiple Red Elephant locations. Eventually, all roads led to the popular Paisley Cafe in Midtown, where she would assume ownership just months before COVID would temporarily shut her down. After first thinking she would lose everything, Jeri says it was the best thing to happen to the industry because it forced positive business decisions that are still paying off today. It paid off personally as well, as she met her husband, Brian Desloge, then a Leon County commissioner, in a meeting with a group of colleagues to complain about the county's COVID policies. Jeri talks about her love for Tallahassee, the importance of her faith, and her dreams for the future. We started our conversation talking about growing up in a relatively unknown part of South Florida.
It was great growing up there. I love being from a little small town. Everybody knew everybody, so everybody would definitely come together, in times of need. And of course, if you got in trouble, everybody knew about it. So there were, times for discipline too, because your parents were going to find out. So that was good.
Did you get in trouble?
I did get in a little bit of trouble, just like every, normal kid growing up in a small town, not
Sure.
a whole lot to do. It was great. I love going back and visiting, but it's really why I like Tallahassee, because it's still that small town feel, but it's bigger and has, a lot more to offer.
All right, so what about parents, siblings? What was your family like?
I grew up with my mom and dad and my two younger sisters, and it was the five of us, and went all through school, with the same kids and everything, and graduated from high school and decided on Tallahassee because I used to go to band camp when I was in middle school and high school at Florida State.
I saw that. I want to ask you about that. So when you think about your childhood and growing up in small South Central Florida, what do you remember most? What sticks out to you?
I really, believe it or not, and this is going to sound crazy, I actually miss the smell of the sugarcane mill and having the black ash fall down from when they were burning all the cane. So the cane season and burning season was just, to me, a really cool and special time. And then, of course, the sugar festival that we had every year in our little small town. We drew, big names with some country music stars that would come in and play. And then people from all over would come into our little town. It was great.
Right.
Yeah. So definitely the sugar cane.
I mean, that's a big, because being up here, we don't really think about it, but sugarcane is huge.
It is huge.
And a big part of life down in that part of the state, right?
Yep. And it was a big part of our lives. My dad worked for U.S. Sugar for 30 years. Yeah. So he's a therapist now. So
And I've even heard that a lot of great athletes come from that part of the state and has something to do with working in the sugarcane fields,
That
right?
is correct. And I'm glad you brought that up. So we have the little neighboring town is Belglade, but Belglade, Clewiston, Pahokee, South Bay, yes, you have a lot of great athletes that come out of that area. And it's because of, they call it the muck rabbit. The muck rabbit. So if you could run through the cane fields or wherever, and if you caught a muck rabbit, you were fast. And that's how a lot of these guys would train sometimes, and they'd kind of, have the bragging rights of, I caught a muck rabbit today.
Now, is a muck rabbit a real thing?
It is a real rabbit. It's like I guess it's like a cottontail rabbit. They're really fast, and so... and that's the thing, when they'd burn the cane, all of these animals would run out of the cane fields. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Adidas actually did a commercial with their shoes and with some of the athletes from that area, and you could see them running through the burning cane. And it was a great commercial, in my opinion. You can still see it on YouTube. But
yeah. All right. So what kind of kid were you? Were you a good student? Were you involved in stuff? Well, we've already established you got in trouble sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
It was the normal trouble every kid gets into. I enjoyed school and I enjoyed going to school, but school for me was more of a social club. I was class president a couple years. I was always on the committees for helping building the floats for the homecoming parades and things like that. I always organized all the dances and, could really get the parents involved with helping out, kind of making it my vision and how I wanted it to do. I was always kind of the boss and was really good at delegating and getting people to kind of bring my vision to life.
A skill that has proven helpful today.
Yes,
right?
Because I am very good at thinking and knowing what I want, but actually kind of executing it, I always need a lot of help in that department. So, but I was your average C, maybe B student. Like I said, I was more involved in all the social aspects of it. I played sports. I ran cross country. I played volleyball, softball, and I was also in the band. So I played saxophone. So I was very involved, and I loved. I always had a job after school too. So, like I said, I was just very involved in all the activities. I wasn't really necessarily involved in the books all the time.
Right, sure. It's important to be well-rounded.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly.
Right, so you were in the band, played saxophone, and you would come to Tallahassee for band camp?
Yep, I would come to Tallahassee for band camp, and I just thought, man, they do such a great job, with this camp. And it was such a fun 2 weeks for me every summer, and I made so many friends from all over the country. I mean, these kids came in from all over.
And it was at Florida State?
It was at Florida State University, and we stayed at, it was called Cash Hall. So it was cool. You had this independence, and you could, walk around the college campus and in the School of Music, and you got to learn other instruments and cultures of music. They did a really good job with music theory and having classes. And then you had to audition and got placed in one of the 3 bands. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, your parents came to pick you up. But we performed for them at Ruby Diamond Auditorium.
Which is pretty cool.
It was really cool, yeah. And so I'm like, I'm coming back to Florida State and getting a degree. So, yeah.
Good. So you liked Tallahassee, you liked Florida State. It obviously left a good impression on you.
It did. I love Tallahassee. I couldn't wait to get back up here after high school and get to Florida State. So, but, I took a roundabout way getting into Florida State.
Right. All right. But while you're still in Clewiston, it sounds like you got your first food service experience at a Shoney's down there.
Yes. Oh, my gosh.
So,
yeah, Shoney's was great. They didn't serve alcohol. So you could be 16 and work as a server there. And so I just had the best time serving people. I don't know what it was, but I got to meet everybody, say hi to everybody, and kind of bring smiles to their faces. And I worked with a friend of mine, Liz, and she loves to tell this story. In fact, we were in Colorado, where she lives now, a couple years ago. And she was telling he's now my husband at the time, Jeri, I would walk out of there with like $20 in my pocket, and she would always have $100 or more because all of her tables just loved her. So it just kind of came natural to me, I guess.
Right.
So.
All right. So you graduate from Clewiston High School, and you already have set in your mind that you want to come to Tallahassee and go to Florida State?
That was it.
Okay. You get here, but you don't end up going to Florida State right away, right?
Nope.
So
Nope.
Here's the roundabout way part of the story.
Here's the roundabout way.
Okay.
I guess being in the service industry, at the time, you didn't really know that there was like a hospitality management program at Florida State or the Dedman School. But also I was a transfer from the Outback Steakhouse in Lake Worth, Florida, up to Tallahassee. And so I was having a great time working there, but I was always fascinated too with crime scene investigation and like that kind of, blood, guts, gore, surgeries, things like that just don't bother me. But I knew I wasn't going to make it in the medical field because you got to study and like read a bunch of books.
Yeah, C's don't really get you medical
Exactly.
degrees so much.
So I was like, ooh, this will be fun. Yeah. And TCC had a great program. So I entered that program, but then, soon into it, I had a really bad bout of like panic disorder that I got diagnosed with. And it was just one of those things that came out of nowhere. I don't know why. But so I said, we're going to put that on the back burner. But, I was making enough money and having a good time and kind of out networking and doing my thing and dabbling here and there. And I was just like, I don't really know what I want to do. So I just kind of stuck with Outback and, was kind of trying out different jobs here and there in the meantime, and then ended up going to Kaiser University. And I thought, oh, well, this might be fun because you learn the back of house and like how to be a chef, but also they teach you like inventory management and kind of how to open a restaurant as well. Then I quickly found out now if I'm going to, open something or be in something, it's got to be that front of house. This back of house, being in the kitchen all day just didn't do it for me. Outback, lo and behold, John Schrowang moved on and opened up his own concept, the Red Elephant Pizza and Grill. And then that's really when things started to kind of take off for me. And then I kind of found where my spot was, if you will.
Yeah. So you went with John and started working at Red Elephant?
Yep. Went with John, started working with Red Elephant. I fell in love with the new store openings and doing lots of training, once again, being the boss.
Right.
And telling people what to do and how to do it.
Yeah.
And fell in love with the front of house coordinator side of it. And so every time he opened up a new store, a friend of mine and I, Casey.
So for those not in the business, explain what that means, front of house coordinator.
Yep, so front of house coordinator. So it was our job to, once all of the front of house staff, which are your servers, your bartenders, your bussers, were hired, we then brought them in and trained them on the Red Elephant way of doing their job at this new venture.
Okay. So you were specializing in opening new locations.
Yep.
And at one point there were 7 or 8?
Yes, there were 8 total, I believe. And so all of them were in Florida and 1 in Dothan, Alabama. I really enjoyed it. And then, just from that, then I was able to kind of progress up the chain at the Red Elephant Cary Forest location and was an assistant general manager over there. Mm-hmm.
At that point, were you thinking about all this knowledge and experience you were collecting, and in the back of your mind, were you thinking, okay, because I know sometimes you can be in a job and just do your job, and other times you're like, okay, I'm going to use this opportunity to learn as much as I can for maybe some possible thing in the future where I might be able to apply it. Was that in your head at all at that point?
It was in my head, but also never in my wildest dreams did I think I would own a place either. But I think just Red Elephant kind of created that you're meant to be in this industry. And so once I knew kind of my time was up with the Red Elephant, I also wanted to explore other categories, if you will, in the hospitality industry. So I really wanted to pursue events and learn what that was all about. So by this time, I had started taking some classes at Florida State because they had the hospitality management program. And I was like, you know what? I've always wanted a degree from Florida State. And so now, I know what I want to get my degree in. And so this will be fun. And so I kind of started that. And then that's when I saw the opportunity for an internship at Honey Lake Plantation Resort and Spa. So
Right.
the Red Elephant and Florida State kind of opened up those, areas of opportunity for me too. And so,
Okay.
yeah.
And Honey Lake's a pretty cool, unique venue.
Correct.
You did of special events,
I did
catering, that kind of stuff?
Yep. So I did, we had our own like catering area. So I was what they called like the catering director or like a catering manager. So, or events manager. So I would help coordinate and put together with the catering team and the operations team weddings. We did events for the governor. We had Mike Huckabee out there. We did hunts, but any kind of corporate event, special event, birthday party, wedding.
When you were at Dedmond, did you ever do one of the little dinner nights?
I did do one of the little dinner series. In fact, it's so fun to go back and participate now.
Yeah, that's a great thing.
It is such a great thing, but it's so hard to get tickets, and that's so wonderful to hear that it's
like an
so
hour
popular.
or something.
And they're done.
They're
Yep,
done.
Yep.
Yeah.
And sold out for like their whole season, if you will.
So you did get to do one?
I did get to do one. But back then it was still called the Ashby Stiff Little Dinner Series.
Right. For the Democrat food critic.
That is correct. Yep,
Right.
yep. And so ours was really fun being on the team. Of course, my role was, the front
boss.
of house. Exactly. And so I got to coordinate, all the stuff and help with the menu. And so that was a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great experience.
It was a great experience.
Yeah. Around this same time, you eventually ended up at the DoubleTree,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So how did you get there?
So how I got there was after about 5 years being at Honey Lake, the owners decided to sell, and I knew it was no longer going to be an event venue. During that time, once again, I had this great network of friends now. So, they were all kind of looking out for me. And so one of them said, hey, the DoubleTree is finishing up all of their renovations, and they're going to need somebody to help sell it as an event space and be a coordinator, catering manager. So I was like, oh man, this would be great. So I went and interviewed and got the job and really enjoyed my time there because now I went from restaurants to a, private resort to now hotels.
Right.
So now I got to learn even more about another part of the service industry, hotels. Yeah.
How was that different? How was that experience different from what you had done before?
It was different because I got to see kind of the Hilton way of doing things and like more of a corporate way of doing things. I really got to get into the nitty gritty of finding out like about what room blocks were. And there was also like a restaurant that was in there and just seeing kind of the operations of how an entire hotel works, which was similar in a way of Honey Lake, but just very different because everything was just, had such a great like process and procedure to it. Yeah.
And was it around this time that you got married?
I actually got married in 2015, the first time to a wonderful man, but it was kind of on the tail end of me coming off of Honey Lake Plantation and into working at the DoubleTree. So that was a lot of fun. Yep. And
so a lot of changes in your life during that time.
A lot of changes in my life during that time. And it was funny because he and I were friends for a few years prior to, and then just kind of reconnected because a lot of this time, once I left Red Elephant, I was living out in Monticello and Lamont. So I was just on the outskirts all the time of Tallahassee.
So after a couple years at the DoubleTree, it seems like you made a kind of a significant pivot in your career in taking a job with John Kohler and Associates as a marketing manager.
Right. So then I thought, well, let me try my hand at marketing. I didn't go to school for marketing, but I mean, I've dabbled before. And of course, I had known John Kohler from my Honey Lake days as well. And he said, you'd be a great fit. So I tried that. My heart was in the service industry, so that lasted a year. But I gained so much knowledge about marketing, and I gained so much knowledge about land and conservation.
After you leave John, it seems like that your next stop is the Paisley Cafe.
That is correct.
Okay.
So
how did that happen?
So that was an opportunity that came up. A friend of ours, Abby, came to me and said, Kirsten really needs a partner in this, and this would be a lot of fun. And my heart was longing to get back into the industry, especially restaurants. Restaurants were my first love. And so we got in there and partnered and came up with a deal. It was, more of a handshake. And I really liked that love on a plate and, what she had going on there. The food was simple and delicious and straightforward. And so
you came in as a partner.
Not really like a full-on partner. It was more I wanted to kind of test the waters out first before I did. So I kind of came in and managed it for a while and turned it from counter service over to full service.
Right.
And so that was super important to me because I thought, we need to be capitalizing on this. And it stressed me out seeing those long lines of people coming in. And I think once everybody found out it was full service, then it, really started to pick up and take on more. Kirsten wanted to get out, and I didn't want to see it go. So we basically came to an agreement, and so I took over from that point. I couldn't call it Paisley, and so I wanted to change the name, and I went round and round with what I wanted to change the name to, but my husband at the time said, everybody keeps saying, they're going to Jeri's, they're going to Jeri's, they're going to Jeri's, and I'm like, well, let's do Jeri's, and we can, put a little heart in there, and so Al Cuneo, he's a legend around town.
Al's a great guy. Worked with him for a long time.
He's an amazing guy. So Cuneo Creative helped me kind of rebrand, and so it just kind of took off from there. And I opened up Jeri's 7 months prior to COVID.
Yes. So first, was it weird to put your name on it? Because I know it, as somebody who owns a business with their name on it, to me it was a little weird at first. So how did you feel about taking this place that people loved and now it has your name on it?
It was very weird at first, and some people even kind of laughed at it. And I said, but it's super cute. And once again, you spell it differently than what most people spell it.
Well, I don't know why would anybody laugh at it?
Well, it was just kind of it was more my friends like, oh, ho, 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 it's Jeri's. Yeah. So it was, it was kind of a ha-ha thing. They weren't, it's been a blessing and a curse all at the same time because, people do expect to see you there. And I am there a lot. You also have to be able to take, a day or two off here and there too.
Jeri can't always be there.
Right, exactly.
Especially now, and we'll get into that in a minute. But, did you have other than the name, did you have a different vision for the restaurant? And did you want to tweak it a little bit, or what was your thought?
I had a vision as far as taking it as far as I could. But once again, I really wanted to carry on that torch and that legacy from Paisley. And I really like I said, those clean, simple, straightforward ingredients. I really liked that it was, a lunch place, so you could be done at 3:00 because by this time I've worked my nights, I've put in my weekends and things like that. And so I liked the idea of being done at 3:00 every day. So it was a perfect kind of integration for me.
And the food was a holdover of the favorites plus some new additions?
Plus some extras, and some new additions. So we kept that simplicity of it. Everything house-made as much as we could, high-quality ingredients, and continued to serve that love on a plate. But just, put that Jeri twist on it, if you will.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you were obviously good at the food part and running the operation, but did the business ownership side, was that intimidating to you at all? Did you feel equipped to do that, or what was that like?
You know what? It's funny. I felt like I could do it, and it was intimidating at first because really – this was the first time, of me running a business by myself. So, I really got to see, kind of the other side of things than just being an operator. I was now the operator owner. And so
payroll and all kinds of new stuff. Oh, man,
I tell you what. Yeah. That's scary every 2 weeks when that comes around.
For sure. It seems like it never stops.
No, it doesn't ever stop.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. It's wild, actually. So I've always been one of these people where, I will think before I leap, but I do a lot of leaping off first. And so I'm always head first into something. And, most of the time it works out. There's sometimes that it doesn't, or I'm kind of, kicking myself or...
Yeah,
but
that's just normal.
You just got to get in there and do it. And so one of the books that really changed my life on things like this is it's called The 5 Second Rule by Mel Robbins. I thought, well, this is good because this is kind of what I've been practicing is you just got to start the movement. You don't need the perfect business plan to get started. You just got to get out there and do it. And then I think Sarah Blakely, the Spanx lady from FSU alum, yep, she said, if your first, prototype or product that you put out doesn't just completely embarrass you, you've done it all wrong. So I thought, all right, I'm on the right track.
That didn't happen.
And
so, yeah.
So, you just got to. So I just got in there and I did it. I just dug in.
Awesome. Well, I always thought the 5-second rule was how long you had to pick up a piece of food if it hit the floor.
We don't do that.
Not in a restaurant setting.
We don't do that, Dave.
No. No, at home.
Oh, at home?
Not in a restaurant.
100% at home.
The 3-second rule. Like, is that M&M that dirty? It's not.
No. Mine's more of like the minute and a half rule at home. I don't care.
But at the restaurant, just to be clear, no, if it hits the floor, it's done.
If it hits the floor, it's done.
Okay, that's good. So make everybody feel better.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned it briefly before, but everything's going along great. The name change, everything's looking good. 7 months later, the world changes as COVID hits.
Oh, man.
Especially the hospitality industry.
Wow. It was scary. And I thought, man, I'm going to lose everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what were your initial thoughts and how did you... what kind of game plan did you put together?
Yeah, so that was just it. We didn't have any time to put a game plan together.
No, nobody knew anything.
Exactly. All of a sudden, it was upon us, But, I think I shut down for like one day because I was like, guys, let me just close for today until we really figure out what's going on. And, of course, things were changing constantly.
This is like March 12th, 13th, 14th, somewhere in there.
It was wild.
Right.
And so, we're shut down. I don't really have a game plan, but I shut down for a day. I had to gather my thoughts and just kind of, go home and put my head in a pillow and scream. And then I thought, whatever they say we can do, we're just going to roll with it and we're going to pivot. And a lot of people, at the time, you're like, holy moly, how are we going to get through this? But you just put one foot in front of the other. You try and keep up with everything. You pivot. But for me, COVID, I think, was the best thing that happened for our industry just because it forced me to go online. It forced me to go digital. It forced me to really find out exactly, how tough I was and what we were made of and how strong the business was and how awesome my employees were. I mean, they were with me and loyal throughout the entire process and, along with me helped figure things out as well. So we just did what we had to do. I mean,
so you followed along with everyone else on when you were open, when you could do curbside meals to go. So you adapted and started doing all that stuff.
That's it.
Right?
Yep. And I had some wonderful people in Tallahassee, especially Dustin Rivest and all those guys over there at 223 Agency that came to me and said, listen, when you had the Ubers of the world, the Grubhubs, and everybody just taking complete advantage of the situation, which I have still never gotten back on third-party apps. I'm getting ready to soon because I'm over it. But
right.
Dustin came in with 223 Agency and said, look, I've got this great product. We've developed it and tested it, and this is going to help you, and it's free. And I said, nothing's free. He goes, no, seriously, I want to help you out. And so that was really cool to see the community of Tallahassee and people like Jennifer Leal with Tallahassee Foodies. Jennifer and I worked together 25 years ago, by the way.
Oh, you did?
At Outback Steakhouse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're Outbackers.
Nice.
So it was funny to see that kind of come full circle, too. But so many people, even our regulars and people in the community that just rallied around everybody and they were patient and they got it. I needed to put in another phone line. I had to update my website.
You mentioned these, but because you were forced to do some things.
Correct.
Some permanent changes were made to the way you do business, and those have been positive.
And they've been very positive, yep. And you look back, and I'm always the optimist, and, I look at the world a little bit through rose-colored glasses, too.
That's not a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing. And so I always look for the good in situations. So I saw the silver lining once, we came out of it and looking back, and I say, it was a terrible thing, but it was a good thing all at the same time. And there is always good and positive that come out of situations like
Sure.
that.
And it was also cool to see from a non-food person or a non-restaurant person, I like food, but a lot of collaboration
That is correct.
between restaurants and people looking out for each other and saying, how can we all survive this together?
That is correct. There was actually, I became great friends with Matt Thompson.
Yeah.
Brad Buckenheimer with Canopy Road, Jennifer Leal, Alicia, and John over at Ricardo's. And there were many more where we all got together and we said, listen, guys, like we got to we got to figure this out. And like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Let's get on and let, everybody know how we're protecting ourselves and protecting them. And if you come up with something, let me know. So it was great because, there's never really any competition between restaurants, although like there is because there's so many, but there's plenty of love to go around too. And so it was really nice to see us come together as owners and operators and managers, along with Jennifer Leal, who, we just got out there and had to stay ahead of it as much as we could.
Yeah.
So,
And we'll be right back. How I Got Here is sponsored by Barano Heating and Air Conditioning in Tallahassee. I've been friends with Patrick Barano since we met in a chamber leads group about 15 years ago. I'll admit that I pursued him pretty hard to be his marketing firm and eventually won him over. And the reason I wanted to work with him is that I was already a customer and I knew what kind of company he and his father before him had built. He cares about his customers, he cares about his team, and he cares about this community. I've experienced Barano Heating and Air when they installed a complete system replacement a few years ago, and I enjoy peace of mind and same-day service with my Total Comfort Service Agreement. I've also been behind the scenes at their office and seen firsthand the true character of this company. And that's why we're so proud to represent them. To learn more or to schedule an appointment online anytime, visit baranoac.com. They really always will be there for you. And now back to the show. Well, let's talk about that for a second on the Tallahassee Foodies.
Sure.
I think this is, now there's like 78,000 people in this group that she created that she didn't expect to be anything.
Isn't that wild?
It's crazy.
I love it.
And it part of the explosive growth was during the COVID period.
That is correct.
And when people started, jumping on, and the whole concept of just positive things, tell us about your experiences. It is not a review group.
That is correct.
It is to encourage and promote the food industry in Tallahassee.
That is correct.
And so tell me about how that tool and that engagement with that group of people, both Jennifer and the user, the group members, what role that played in the growth of the restaurant.
Yeah, that was great because all of a sudden you had, thousands of new eyeballs that were on your business. And she opened up her platform to us to say, post whatever you want, any special deal, whatever. And so having that positive engagement along with, hey, this is my favorite place here in town. It may not be your cup of tea, but hey, go check it out because this is why I really like it. I just thought it was such a cool and unique tool instead of doing that nasty Google and Yelp review type things where, I just wish more people would understand that like that's how it should be. And newsflash, we're in the service industry, we're in hospitality. If you are not enjoying yourself or if you had a terrible experience, like please let somebody know because we will bend over backwards, to help out. So I think she did a really good job in promoting that. It was a wonderful tool for us to be able to say, here's what we're doing, here's how we're doing it, and we would love for you to stop by, or here's the process of how we're doing this and that, because everybody, it was like the wild, wild west out there. I mean, it was just, she just did such a great job of allowing all of us to get out there in front of everybody. And once again, I'm all rainbows and butterflies and hearts and love. And so I just thought it was such a unique and wonderful tool for all of us to use at the time.
Yeah. Well, you got the cafe all squared away, and then now recently there's been kind of another flurry of activity.
That is
right.
correct.
You acquired Simply Entertaining.
I acquired Simply Entertaining.
From Robin Lewis.
Yep. And Robin and I were great friends, but, she had a major life change that was going on. And so she said, oh my gosh, you would be the perfect one to, buy this and continue on once again with that torch and that legacy as well, because we knew a lot of the same people and we had a lot of the same clients. So it was just a natural fit. I had some other serendipitous things that happened throughout that process too, that just kind of it was easy. It was an easy transition and it was an easy buyout, and just everything kind of lined up, and it was almost like a God thing, And so I had a friend of mine that called once I told Robin, all right, this is a go. Let's just get through the first of the year, get all the tax stuff worked out, because it's better to do a fresh start in January since we were so close to it anyways. And then I had a friend of mine, Stephanie, who's my GM there now. She called me out of the blue. I probably shouldn't be telling this story, but sorry, Mark. But she said, there's this other company that is looking for a catering director, and I was just wondering if you knew anything about the company or if you have worked with anybody over there. And I said, well, I haven't.
But actually.
But I know they put out a great product. They're amazing. And, I love stopping by there. But here's what I got going on. She goes, okay, done. I'm coming to work for you.
Oh, wow.
And I said, all right, done. So boom, we
So that would have been hard without somebody in place.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was looking for. And so that just kind of fell into my lap, and she had no idea about it. So, once again, it worked out. And
so what is Simply Entertaining by Jeri?
So Simply Entertaining by Jeri is it's a full-service catering company, but we also have retail in the front, so you can come and pick up all kinds of great little entertaining things for you to entertain at your home. Hostess gifts, we can put together gift baskets, things like that. It's also a meal pickup. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we advertise. We have a different menu every week for each day. And then we also have, cases of food where if you want to come by and pick up, dinner that night because you couldn't get in on the Tuesday, Thursday, we always have extra dinners, snacks, appetizers. You need to pick something up for a party, a cheese board, a charcuterie board, whatever. So.
And where's that located?
So that one's located 1355 Market Street. It's right in between Cotton Colors and Lofty Pursuits.
Lofty, yeah.
Yep. Everybody knows where Lofty is. Such a great place.
Yeah.
I love the ice cream.
Yeah. And they just celebrated their 30th
anniversary.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a lot of fun.
So congratulations to Greg on that.
Yes, congratulations, Greg.
Yeah, 30
That's right.
years.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but you're not done there.
Not done there.
Another opportunity for a second restaurant location.
Yes, and but I would like to insert in here too that after the first of the year, I'm buying Simply, but I also got engaged.
Okay.
Getting engaged, buying a company, and then another opportunity comes along to where David and Elizabeth were looking to continue to downsize. They had Cypress and the Grove Marketplace and Vertigo Burger, and so they were looking to downsize even more. I kind of got wind about it and was texting them right away and knocking on their door because I've been kind of drooling over that location for a couple
right
of
next
years.
to Island Wings.
Exactly. And it's just such a great centrally located area in
it's
Tallahassee.
About 30 steps from Simply Entertaining.
That is correct.
Which is good.
And far enough away from the Midtown area as well.
Tell us about what that restaurant is and what's different about it and what your vision for that spot is.
Yep. During all this time, Jeri's Midtown Cafe in Midtown continued to grow. But the problem there is I don't have a walk-in cooler. I don't have a walk-in freezer. I didn't have a hood system or anything. And so it was really meant to be more cafe style. I mean, it was so hard to do what we did out of there with the resources that we had. So I had been looking for a bigger kitchen, one with a walk-in, because at this point, I knew I needed to expand and get more sales and dollars coming in. And it was, more room to do catering and things like that. So we were just super limited with our resources, which not a big deal. We were making it work. But this particular location allowed me to expand my menu even more, and I could be open for longer hours. So I decided, I really like breakfast too, in addition to brunch and lunch. So we're going to open up at 7 a.m. We're going to add on a great breakfast menu, and we're going to offer breakfast, lunch, and brunch all day, every day that we're open. So there we are.
How's that going?
It's going really well. I would like more breakfast business, so y'all come on out.
So how have you managed, the catering thing with someone you trust to, with Simply Entertaining to handle that end of things? I see where you may not have to be as hands-on with that.
Correct.
But now you're running 2 restaurants. Mm-hmm. So how do you make that work?
So I make that work. I've got a great team. I've been very fortunate in that I don't have a lot of turnover. My kids will leave, and see, I don't have any children of my own, and so they're all my kids.
Yeah.
And so, they'll leave when they graduate or get a job after graduation and things like that. And it's so fun to see them, flourish and leave and then, call me and tell me, how great it's going.
Yeah.
But so I think I've done a really good job with training and coming up with like kind of the Jeri way of doing things, I guess. And I've had this great team for a couple of years, and so it was just a natural progression almost in taking that team and becoming the opening team over there at the new Market Plaza location.
We have one more piece of the puzzle that you've alluded to, but we haven't gotten into, and that's you mentioned that you were engaged during that during the acquisition period there. Mm-hmm. You are now married to Brian Desloge.
Yep.
Just tell us a little bit about that, how you met, and kind of your story a little bit.
Yep. How we met, I was going through a divorce. Unfortunately, it was very amicable. And when I found out that he was the one that like shut us down, I was like, who is this Desloge guy? As a
county commissioner.
Exactly.
Right, a part of the county commission.
And I'm very embarrassed to say, until I became a business owner, I was not very involved or even really knew about what all was involved with local government.
Okay.
And so it's been really fun to learn that aspect of it too. But a lot of us business owners got together, and I will give credit to John Schrowang because he says it's because of him that we met and we are where we are. But he said, guys, let's go and, talk with Brian. And so it was me and like 8 other business owners, and we could meet him and go ask him questions and kind of, like, where are you getting your information? Now, hindsight, he totally made all the right decisions, in my opinion, and he was doing the best he could. It was a pandemic. Nobody was, it's not a hurricane. It's not
in the handbook for what to do.
It's not in the handbook, exactly. Right. So, and everybody was scared, and so we got a chance to go and chat with him, and so I was just so like,
So that was the first time you met?
That was it.
Disgruntled business
owner. And so me going through a divorce, and then he had just broken off an engagement. He said, well, let's go out for a drink and commiserate. And I said, absolutely not.
So he didn't ask any of the other 7 or 8 people at the meeting, right?
Right. Exactly. So, but we did get to ask our questions, and we talked about things and understood it a lot more. And so,
but you spurned him at his first advance.
I did.
Okay.
It was hilarious. So, but then we eventually did, go out and have that drink because I still had some more questions and things like that. But we finally got together. It was funny because he mentioned a place to meet up at, and I thought he was like being mean and like messing with me because I said, remember, you shut all the bars down. Like, we can't get together at this place because it's not open.
Right.
So we met up, and then I got, I found out, well, he's not as mean, and, he's kind of cute. And the rest is kind of history from there. So we became friends, and I got to kind of see how his world worked and how it all started to come together, and started waving signs and then getting involved. And so I was involved with his campaign as much as I could be. Not a lot. I would provide, food and cater a couple different things. And so we're dating, and then, yes, we're all over the place and having a great time. And then finally got engaged and got married on the 2nd of August. And that was it. The rest is history. He's been a great help and a support too, because, he's also very business oriented and business
successful
minded.
Entrepreneur and business owner.
Mm-hmm. So he's been able to give me some wonderful, great advice, and has been, my number one cheerleader throughout everything that I've done. So it's been fun to do it along somebody who has also been there, done that. And so I'm always able to bounce ideas.
Final 2 questions.
Okay.
All right, Jeri, looking back, what would you say is the one thing or person that changed the trajectory of your life to this point?
I would probably have to say the faith area of my life.
Okay.
And so the reason I say that is because, you're kind of hopping along, and I'd, grown up in the church, but working out at Honey Lake Plantation, I would probably have to say Bob Williamson, the owner. He was such a polarizing person. I mean, you either hated him or you loved him. There was no in between. And he was very unconventional with a lot of things that he did, but he is the only boss that I've ever had that I probably loved and hated all at the same time. I remember it's the only time I've ever cried at work. And working for him, I could work for anybody, and I kind of, found out real quick how tough I was. But also he got me back into my faith and my Christian faith and my walk with God. And so that was probably a turning point for me too, because I started then, going back to church and getting more involved in that way as well. So that's a huge part of my life and what I do and why I run, my business the way that I run my business. My employees and staff and kids are just, they're everything to me. And so I try and lead by example, so I kind of credit everything to that, I think. It's been divine, if you will, the entire time after that. So with everything just kind of falling into place the way that it did. Yeah.
All right, final question.
Okay.
The podcast is called How I Got Here.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about how you got to this point in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think here might be for you in the next 3 to 5 years?
Ooh, 3 to 5 years. You want me to be honest?
Yes, I want you to be honest.
Okay.
You'll have 24 restaurants located throughout the Big Bend area.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I say I've got a 5-year plan. In 5 years, that's when a lot of my leases come to an end, in 4 to 5 years. And I think really that's what I have left in me running a restaurant. I think it's going to be a lot of fun up until then, but I would eventually like to try my hand at something else. And so one thing I've been super passionate about is nonprofits and volunteering and that type of thing. I feel like it's one of those things where I wish I could do more in the role that I am in now, but I'm just so consumed with all 3 businesses that I can't do as much as I'd like to do because I want to give back even more to the community. So I think if I could be involved as like just almost silent owner or something, I don't really know, but that's in 5 years. I would like to, of course it'd be great if Jeri's and everything else is continuing on, but I could see myself kind of transitioning out and having Jeri's go on, but transitioning out and really getting in heavily involved with nonprofits. Second Harvest of the Big Bend just really has my heart, and things like that, just, helping spread the love even more. But being able to work on those passion projects and passion jobs too that I'm really interested in, but can't really do anything about right now. So yeah, that's what I think I'd like to try my hand out, but still doing events and things like that and fundraising. I just find it all fascinating. So Boys Town is another one that's, really kind of near and dear to my heart. So, but I can't be as involved as I'd like to be. So that would be fun. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the show. You can subscribe at Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, please leave us a review. It really does make a difference. Thanks to my amazing staff at Fiore Communications, who pick up the slack while I'm working on these podcasts, and to Troy Bloom for composing our theme music. You can hear more of Troy's creations on Facebook and Instagram at Troy Bloom Music. To connect with the podcast or suggest a future guest, follow us on social media or email us at podcast@fiorecommunications.com.